On Thanksgiving night in Alabama, there was a mall shooting. During the shooting, Emantic Bradford Jr. was killed. According to witnesses, he was killed in seconds. EJ had a permit to carry his gun. The police showed up to the shooting, and they see a man with a gun. They don't know that he has a permit. However, they shoot him dead. His family's asking for the videos. They want transparency immediately. And in going through this in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm in a mall. There's a shooting. I'm legally allowed to carry the gun. I want to protect myself. I pull my gun out. I'm going to say I highly doubt he was pointing his gun at police. So why was he shot dead? Initial reports called the officer heroic, and they've had to retract that because now they know he was not involved in any shooting. He was likely a man scared, trying to protect himself. But they didn't know that. His parents found out he was dead on social media. So now that they've retracted the statement, they say it's unlikely that EJ was involved in this. His father said his son was 21 years old. He had been in the Army. However, the Army says he had not completed all of his training. Either way, the young man was not a criminal. He had no criminal past. The police would not have known this when they pulled up. That's totally understandable. I'd just like to understand what is the criteria for shooting somebody on the spot in seconds. Where's the baseline here? What do we need to know as people? If you're allowed to have a gun and you have a license for a gun and you've been a good kid your whole life and you've done everything right and you're in a mall and there's a shooting and you're holding your gun because you're thinking something could happen to me, are the police just allowed to come and shoot you? I mean, it just sounds insane to me. His parents are very upset, obviously. The dad has been a prison guard for years and considers the town police family. And he says no one has reached out to him yet. That is just adding insult to injury in this case.
Benjamin Crump, who is representing the family now. Ms. Pipkins, Mr. Bradford, we're so sorry for your loss and how it had to happen this way and how you had to find out about this. Mr. Bradford, we here on New Day on Friday reported on this as though the gunman had been shot and killed by police. That's what the police statement said. That's what our police sources said. And then the story changed, and it turned out that your son, your 21-year-old son, who has no criminal record, was the person who was shot and killed, and the gunman is still on the loose. What have police told you about this horrible mistake?
They haven't told me anything yet. Nobody has responded. You know, we hadn't got no calls and no apology. Nothing has been told to us what happened, what transpired, and led up to this point.
Mr. Bradford, the police, in this horrible, tragic case of mistaken identity, have not reached out to you, his family.
No, not at all.
Ms. Pipkins, how do you think, you're holding a picture there of your son. We've seen him. We've seen how handsome he was. Obviously, he went into the Army. He was described by everybody as just being a helpful person, wanting to help others. How do you explain what happened in that mall?
I know that was the day that they took my son from me, and my Thanksgiving will never be the same. I'll never be able to see my son's face again, or to look into his eyes, or to hear him say, "Mom, I love you, Mom, love you," and hug on me and kiss on me, you know. And like his father has said, no one has even reached out to us. And in any type of way. So my Thanksgiving will never be the same, because that's just the
Yeah.
when I lost my son, and
Yeah.
not knowing, not even knowing if I'll be able to have an open casket, to see him again. I'm just at a loss of words right now.
Understood. Mr. Crump, this is horrible. I mean, this is just a horrible tragedy. And the idea that the police wouldn't reach out to the family to try to explain themselves, but maybe it's that in the chaotic seconds after a gunman opened fire on shoppers in a crowded mall, they showed up. And I think that what their story is now was that EJ had a gun himself, and they thought that he was brandishing a gun and that he was the gunman. Can it be an innocent case of mistaken identity?
Well, it's awfully ironic that they're asking for this family to give them the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of consideration, Allison, even though they didn't give E.J. Bradford the benefit of the doubt and consideration when this off-duty police officer who was doing private security for the Galleria Mall pulled the trigger, we believe, unjustifiably. Several witnesses have reached out to us and said it was in milliseconds. He offered no verbal commands. He didn't say freeze, police, anything. He just saw a young black man with a gun and he shot. Witnesses say EJ was helping them. A young lady said EJ saved her life and helped several others, reached out to the family. So he was a good guy with a gun. But this notion of good guy with a gun trying to stop the bad guys with guns doing these mass shootings, where if you happen to be black, the police see you as a criminal, and they shoot and kill you. That has been shown in Jamel Robinson in Chicago, now here in Birmingham, Alabama, which is the epicenter of the civil rights movement, that it doesn't matter if you're a good guy with a gun. If you're black, the police shoot and kill you and ask questions later.
Mr. Crump, is it your understanding from what you've been able to find out about what happened during that chaotic moment that many people in the mall were carrying guns that day and took their guns out as the good guys to try to stop the bad guy? Or was it just EJ?
Well, we understand now that there was a shooting before this, and after they shot EJ, witnesses have said there was more shooting. So this would have suggested to the police that EJ was not the person who shot the gun if they're still shooting afterwards. But very important, the video tells us everything, Allison, to heal this community and give trust to this family and severing the community. What the police should do, what the family is demanding, is release the video. You don't need to say no more. Release the video, because they don't trust the police department, because they've already lied to them and pulled the trigger. And the Hoover Police Department pulled the trigger and released his picture all over the world, saying that he was a shooter, and they said the officer was a hero. Can you imagine how that made these parents feel?
Here is their first week 1 update today at 10:30. Consistent with our message from earlier this morning, the following statement serves as the initial weekly, at minimum, media update to be issued each week. The initial shooter is still at large, and law enforcement is working diligently to apprehend this individual. We encourage anyone with information to contact law enforcement. We would like to answer some questions to the media concerning our earlier statements in reference to the shooting victim, Emantic Fitzgerald Bradford Jr. of Hueytown. Earlier we stated that Mr. Bradford brandished a gun. To clarify, the word brandish was used because Mr. Bradford had his gun in his hand as police officers responded to the active shooter situation between mall patrons. We are deeply and sincerely sympathetic to Mr. Bradford's grieving family and all of those affected by this incident. We want all answers, and we believe that with patience and focus, the truth will be firmly established. As stated earlier today, we continue to support ALEA in its investigation of last Thursday's tragic events, including pursuing the initial shooter who still remains at large. We have certain information about this individual and ask that the public provide ALEA with any available details that may hasten an arrest. So now I'm at home and I wanted to read more about the story, so I have. And the more I read, the more angry I become, the sadder I become. This young man was shot in his face, and witnesses are saying that there were no verbal commands given, and it happened very quickly. Now, I never like to vilify police. I absolutely am not one of those people. However, if what they say is true, and the body cam should confirm that, then this officer needs to be fired and prosecuted immediately. He's currently on administrative leave, and I do feel for the officer's family, because God knows when you're put in a situation like that, what do you do? But shooting this young man in his face with no verbal command, I absolutely hope the witnesses got this wrong. We do know he was shot in the face. We do know that his parents can't have an open casket. That alone, besides never having their son again, but to not be able to see his face to say goodbye, I don't know. We've got to change things. The divide between the officers and the people is becoming greater. And again, I'm not here to bash police, but I am here to sympathize with this family. And I hope this police force keeps its word and keeps people updated, because this is an absolute tragedy.